Welcome back from that short break. I am still here with Michael. Before the break, we were talking about how in 1971, when Idi Amin Dada took over as president of this country, he rendered the 1967 constitution, that was the constitution of Uganda at the time, inoperable.
Yes.
So, Michael, after he renders it inoperable and starts ruling by decree, what happens next?
Okay. Now, after he started ruling by decree, well, this happened until 1979.
Michael, sorry
Yes.
to cut you short. What exactly is decree, ruling by decree?
Okay.
What does that mean?
Okay. Now, a decree is a kind of law. You have to remember that laws have multiple levels. The highest level of the law is the Constitution. Now, under the Constitution, you have what we call primary laws, right?
Yes.
Which are acts of Parliament, the Contract
For
Act.
example,
Yeah, for example, the Contract Act, which lawyers love. You have the Public Order Management Act, which I'm very sure some of you have heard about. Now, under these acts, you have what they call decrees. Yeah, decrees are what they call secondary laws. You have things like rules, regulations, decrees. But now, with the Constitution gone, he could rule by decree. Now, the decrees became like equivalent of laws. And even...
In other words,
Yes.
He would say what the law should be at the time,
Yes.
and then it becomes law. So what he said was
Yes.
law, and but because the whole hierarchy had been dismantled,
Yeah.
well, we don't call them decrees.
Yeah, it was a little bit more interesting than that. Now, when we say that he ruled by decrees, he'd wake up one day and make a decision. We all know what happened when he kicked out the Indians. He woke up and said the Indians should leave Uganda within 72 hours. His people had to come sit together and make a law to that effect, which became an act of Parliament.
So what you are saying is that at that time, it would start with a decree. Then from the decree, Parliament can go ahead to make laws to operationalize that decree.
There was no Parliament. Yeah, he had a group of individuals who would work under him to create those laws. Then this continued until Amin was thrown out of power in 1979. Then we had Obote come into power. After Amin was thrown out, elections were held. Okay. Then a new government was formed under Obote. Okay. But then, unfortunately...
Is that what they refer to as Obote 2?
They call it Obote 2, the second coming. It has various names.
The second coming, indeed.
Yes, Obote 2, or I like the second coming. But Obote 2, yeah.
Okay.
So, then, after that one, Obote was thrown out by the National Resistance Army, the NRA at that time. Then the NRA
When is that?
That was 1986.
Okay.
Yes. Then the NRA went about the process of creating a new constitution, which started with the Constitutional Commission, which was headed by Justice Odoki. He was a lawyer, retired.
Retired Chief Justice.
Yeah, retired Chief Justice Odoki. So now, that commission ended up creating what we call the Odoki Report, which was the basis of the 1995 Constitution, which we have here.
1980? Did the 1967 Constitution resurrect?
Yeah. The 1967 Constitution was resurrected.
In 1980?
Yeah.
For the Obote 2 regime?
Yes.
And then 1986 when the NRA takes power. Are we still operating under the 1967 Constitution? What is happening there?
Well, yeah, we were operating under that Constitution until the new Constitution was created.
Okay. So which people were involved in this constitution-making process. Yes, there was a commission that came up with a report.
Yeah.
But after the report had been published, then the work of actually coming up with a constitution started. So which people were involved in this work? Was it Parliament? Was it a group of people, as in the Amin era? Was it the NRA, military generals?
Okay. Now, after the process of creating the new constitution started, the Legislative Assembly was formed in order to create the constitution. Now, the Legislative Assembly is sort of like a parliament, but then it became parliament after the passing of this constitution.
So, which people were these who received the Odoki report, the report from the Odoki Commission, and started the work on putting in place a constitution?
Okay. Now, after the Odoki Commission was completed, we had the Constituent Assembly that was formed. And now the Constituent Assembly had the duty of creating the 1995 Constitution.
The Constituent Assembly, how did it come into being? Who made up the Constituent Assembly? Was it catered for in the 1967 Constitution? How did it come into being?
Well, the NRA, which was the government at that time, brought together various individuals with different abilities from different parts of society in order to reflect the widest will of the people possible.
So were they handpicked, or was there an electoral process helped in the formation? Because this is a constitution. We are trying to form a constitution. And well, when you look at the 1995 Constitution, it talks a lot about the people and the will of the people, the needs of the people. So in forming the Constituent Assembly, was that catered for as well? Did people have a say in the members of the Constituent Assembly?
Yeah, there was an electoral process that occurred in order to select the individuals who would then become part of the Constituent Assembly. Now, after the election, the Constituent Assembly was formed. Sorry about that. And then it is the Constituent Assembly that then created the 1995 Constitution.
What kind of people formed this Constituent Assembly? Were there special representations, for example, for women, for the elderly, for children, or was it whoever stood and convinced their area that they were worthy?
Okay, now, in order to get the widest possible representation, like you pointed out, certain special areas, interest groups, let's call them that, were specifically catered for. Like you pointed out, we had the elderly, we had women, I can't remember properly if we had members of the military at that time, but yeah, this was in order to prevent a situation where you'd have only the most popular people coming into power. Now, I think, yeah, like at that time, women in politics were underrepresented. So there was a need to specifically ensure that women interests were catered for. There was a need for special needs individuals to be catered for.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but I am very sure you'll be here next week.
Yes,
for us to complete this very interesting discussion. Thank you, dear viewers, for tuning in to Breaking the Law. We'll be here next week, definitely, to further break down the law for you. See you next time.